Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 update series from Henry Schein on YouTube. I'm Dr. Gary Severance, and it's my pleasure to see the comments, suggestions, and ideas that you have for upcoming episodes. If you're watching this during the premiere, you'll see an active chat on the right-hand side of the screen, and if you're watching this pre-recorded, you can also provide your comments below. And make sure that you do subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get the latest information and updates. Now, normally we turn it over to Dr. David Resnick for his clinical update, but because of the content and the length of today's topic, we've created a special video with just Dr. Resnick. The link to that video is in the description below, or you can find it as one of our videos on the YouTube channel. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Stephen Katz and Kelly Fox-Galvagni of Smile Potential Dental Practice Coaching. I've always enjoyed their presentations, and I'm sure you will too. Dr. Katz and Kelly will highlight 12 specific strategies that practices can put into place to come back even stronger after the pandemic. Welcome, Steve and Kelly.
And thank you, Gary, for the introduction. It's our pleasure to be doing this webinar on behalf of Henry Schein. I'm Dr. Stephen Katz, and I'm joined with my partner, Kelly Fox-Galvagni.
Hello, everyone.
We know this has been a very difficult time for everyone here. Kelly and I are in the New York area. It's been particularly devastating to our practices, our doctors, families, friends, etc. We hope that all of you are safe, that you're well, and that you've been able to avoid being inflicted with the coronavirus. I'd like to welcome you to 12 strategies to prime your practice for reopening. These have been very, very difficult times for all of our practices. We have our teams waiting in abeyance, and we are eager to treat patients, but unable to until our offices are able to reopen. I'd like to introduce you to my partner, Kelly Fox-Galvagni. This has the contact information for both myself and Kelly. We have been coaching together now for 12 years. In the last 4 years, we've worked with 93 practices, mostly in the New York area, and we have helped them obtain an increase in their revenue of now over $50 million. When you have an 8-ounce glass of water and it has 4 ounces of water in it, how do you look at it? Do you see that glass as half full, or do you see it as half empty? Or more important, when faced with challenges, do you focus on what you want, or do you focus on what you have? It all depends on perspective. This is Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, one of the most beautiful monuments in our country. It's a tribute to 4 of the greatest presidents that we've had in our nation's history. And from the front, it's beautiful and majestic. However, if you look at the backside of it, it is a completely different view, and it certainly paints it in a very different light. When I played football in high school, my team was a powerhouse locally. And if we were to have a 1-point loss, you would find us cursing and sulking at the end of the game. In college, my team, Columbia University, was not as much of a power. It was quite the opposite. And so we would view a 1-point loss as almost a victory, and we would celebrate it. So it is all about perspective as we're going about life right now. Challenges in life can make you either bitter or better. It depends on you. And life is going to continue to throw us challenges. I'm very familiar with this. 20 years ago, I lost my practice to a series of life tragedies. I was out of work. I had multiple surgeries. It was a horrible time. But that time off allowed me to put together a vision for my practice, to develop the systems that I would have, to surround myself with a great team, to train that team in both dentistry, sales, psychology, so that when we returned, we were able to position ourselves in a way that we could be highly successful. And if you're on this call today, you have the opportunity to overcome what we're going through right now. See, the difference that from when I had my challenge 20 years ago and now is that we're all going through this together. And in togetherness, there is a great deal of strength. Your practices also will be able to return in a way that makes them more successful than they were before. If you do the preparation during this period now when you're down. The first step is priming your pump. I have two friends, Fred and Bob, who are very, very avid hikers, and they were on a hike in the Southwest. It was a long day of hiking. They were very, very thirsty from traveling through the desert, and they came across an abandoned shack that had an old well out back with a hand pump. And they were thirsty, so Fred started pumping, and nothing was coming out. And Bob saw a bucket nearby, and Bob decided to pour some water that was in that bucket into that pump to prime the pump. And the pump is like our practices. You need to put something in to get something out. Now, Fred was working pretty hard, working up a sweat, and he asked Bob, why didn't they just take the water from the bucket if they were so thirsty? And Bob described how the well was very deep, and the water at the bottom was particularly cool and refreshing and tasty. And isn't that like our offices as well? Don't the cases that we work the hardest to sell and work the hardest on, don't they end up giving us the most satisfaction? Well, Fred was becoming quite frustrated working so hard, and he was starting to give up. And at some point, Bob came over to him and said, Fred, don't stop pumping now. If you stop now, all that cool water that you've been getting up near the top is going to go right back down. If you just pump long enough and hard enough and enthusiastically enough, the reward of that cool water will make this effort well worthwhile. Then once the water starts to flow, all you'll need to do is to keep it flowing by keeping light, consistent pressure on it. It would get easier over time, but if he would stop pumping then, he would have to start all over again. And that's like our practices. When we invest in our practices by priming the pump and enthusiastically working hard in the moment, then as we continue the effort and not become complacent, we are able to create wonderful momentum and our practices continue to grow. This is our opportunity now to prime the pump of our practices, put in that extra time now so that when we get back to work, it will be so much easier to be successful.
And now is a great opportunity. I like to look at everything like Dr. Katz. We are glass half full type people, always looking at things from a more optimistic point of view. And now more than ever, our teams and our patients need someone to be optimistic. We have you all as doctors in your community have an opportunity to be pillars and cornerstones of your community and leaders, and show some goodwill and reach out to your patients and just check in on them. Everybody listening in on this webinar today can think of at least a handful, I'm sure, of patients that you know have complicated health histories that are probably very frightened and very homebound, seniors, people that are very isolated right now. There are so many senior citizens in every community that are living completely by themselves and isolated from all human contact. That is tremendously stressful and scary for people who have already lived through a lot of things in their life. So how wonderful would it be for you to be probably the only doctor that knows them, that picks up the phone and calls them just to see how they're doing and assure them that everything is going to be okay. And we've had lots of our client doctors take advantage of this suggestion that we've made, and the responses have been wonderful. Dr. Katz and I have had multiple doctors call us to tell us, our client doctors, to tell us what an incredible, heartwarming response they have gotten from the patients that they've been able to reach, just to say, how are you? Is everything okay? And maybe there's a senior patient or a medically compromised patient that doesn't live far from you that you could actually drop off a couple of rolls of paper towel on their steps for them, or some other little thing that they need that would help them make their day a little bit brighter. So use this time and this opportunity to be a leader and show people the way to optimism.
Your patients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The goodwill that you show them today gives them a much better reason why you should be someone that they can believe and trust in. tomorrow. So I like to say that I work for an incredible group of women. And when I think about some of the doctors who have really had an impact on me through the years, Mark Hyman, Ross Nash, they were successful because of their team. And I know that in my own office, that the only reason that I've been so successful and was successful during my career was because I had a great team behind me. And now is certainly not a time to abandon your teams if you're not in your offices. One of the things you should be doing, Kelly talked about reaching out to your patients. You should be reaching out to the members of your team on a regular basis and showing them how much you care about them. Most of them are going through a much rougher time and have much more reason to be worried than we do as doctors. So please be compassionate. Extend yourself to help them in any way that you're able to. There are so many services that are available to you and your teams to help everyone get through this incredibly difficult time. When it comes to issues like dealing with team employment policies, eligibility for various services, developing the most appropriate strategies, we've seen that it's very helpful to deal with accountants who specialize in working with dentists. I believe that some of our coaching clients have had a distinct advantage because they are working with dental CPAs who work solely with dentists. So please reach out to your teams, ask them how they're doing, ask them how you can help them, give them confidence that when they come back, you will create an environment that's safe and nurturing for them, and that you will be doing everything possible to give them as much security as possible, safety, and some optimism for long-term employment when they return.
And again, I just want to remind everyone, we have this incredible gift of time in our coaching experiences with our clients. And when we're out lecturing, we make a lot of the same suggestions that we're going to make today. Obviously, not with the COVID point of view, but we consistently hear doctors and their teams say, oh, that's such a great idea, Kelly. I'd love to do that, but we just don't have the time. We're just so busy every day. How would we ever get that project off the ground? Well, now here we are. We all said we were too busy, and the universe or the higher powers listened, and we all have time. So there is so much education, like this wonderful series of webinars that Henry Schein is producing for all of you. There are amazing TED Talks. There are books to read. The amount of knowledge that all of us can gain during this time. If there are books that you think would be good for your team to read, send them to them via Amazon and say, let's read this book while we have a little time and talk about it when we get back to work in a few weeks. What a wonderful opportunity to expand your knowledge, be at the top of your game, not just from a clinical aspect. There are wonderful webinars and books on psychology. There are terrific resources on treatment planning and case acceptance. It is all at our fingertips, thank goodness, because of technology. We have so much access to information that will bring us back better and stronger than we ever were before.
And there are courses outside of dentistry. Dale Carnegie gives great programs on leadership and competence. TED Talks. Go through the catalog of TED Talks and look to see what might apply for you and your teams. One of our client offices, very, very innovative doctor, has developed his own online university for him and his team. His team gets paid based on their attendance in viewing some of the educational matters. And at the end, when we go back to work, he'll have a diploma for each of them. So be creative, make it fun. Try to do things that build everybody up, give them confidence, and give them something to work on in coming back with a great deal of more skill and knowledge in what they do. And we need to give our teams direction. This is a period of tremendous confusion. A lot of us don't know where to turn to, what we need to do moving forward. Without direction, you can feel kind of lost. There's a lot of confusion about what's to be expected of all of us in our practices. How do you define what each member of your team will be doing? It's important to define each person's lanes, give them clarity, and then realize that efficiency comes from keeping each member of the team in their lane. Certainly not like this road that leads to nowhere. And part of that clarity is creating clear lists of responsibilities for your team, job descriptions. Interesting that with most of our team members, they carry a lot of information in their head. Our dental assistants, they know what we need, what we're going to use before we know it. They have all the information about the supplies we have and what goes on the MSDS sheets and what to tell our patients, but it's in their head. If they were to leave, it's gone with them. Our hygienists know about all of the sensitivities our patients have and all the different likes and dislikes that they have. It's in their head. Our administrators know how to schedule patients, and they know their personal preferences and they know their payment routines, but it's all in their head. There was an office in Pennsylvania where the members of the team went on a lottery ticket together and they won $43 million. And they came back the next day only to collect their things. And with that loss of team, for the doctor was the loss of all the knowledge that they had as well. I went through this about 8 years ago when 6 members of my team had babies in the same month. But it was because we had great job descriptions and a great procedure manual that enabled our office to be successful even in their absence. We teach our teams how to develop these clear responsibilities. And in developing the job descriptions, the first step for all of you would be to ask each member of your team to list the things that they do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And then you have the time now to collect them from the members of your team and go through them and distribute those responsibilities based on who you feel that has the strengths to accomplish them. Once you have those lists of responsibilities, then you can go back to each team member and tell them to make a detailed explanation on how to do each one of those responsibilities. And in the end, you have a manual for your office that not only is clear about the responsibilities and job descriptions, but it also serves as a great training manual for all of the potential new employees that you may have over time.
And improving your verbal skills. We have such an opportunity now to think of the concerns and the challenges that our patients may be facing in this new COVID environment that we're all going to be living in, the new normal, and thinking, are our scripts, do we have scripts, first of all? And usually the answer is no, that the teams have said, I don't like scripting. It makes me sound like a robot. I'm really smart. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't need a script. That probably sounds familiar to a lot of people listening in right now. But the reality is the patients need scripts. It's not about us. It's not about our ego. It's about helping patients, giving patients all of the information that they need to make good informed decisions for themselves. When multiple people are asked the same question by a patient, which happens all the time, every day in every one of our practices, and multiple people say the answer to that question in their own unique way, that does not exude confidence or expertise. It does not give the patient the definitive feeling that we all know what we're talking about. What it does is it tends to confuse the patient or makes them feel that they have multiple choices when they really do not. And that is why so often when we observe new coaching clients, we watch patients act like they're all in the treatment room when a doctor presents something. And then when they get out to the administrative person, they lie and say they don't have their calendar and they leave without making their next appointment. And that's because they really didn't buy in because they didn't understand what was in it for them. So I want you guys to reevaluate in this time that you have now, are all of your scripts, are all of your practice defined answers to every question, are they patient-centric or are they practice-centric? And they will always be practice-centric to the extent that they're going to work for your practice, but they have to feel to the patient that they're patient-centric. The patient has to think to themselves, wow, that sounds exactly like what I want. I'm all in on that. I want to do that. So evaluate the scripts that you do have. We are offering everybody that's attending this webinar today a free copy of our Smile Potential scripts. We have a massive script book, and we're going to offer you a big slice of that book for free just for attending. So you can go ahead and email us at smilepotential coaching@smilepotential.com, or call us on the number on the screen, and we'll get that out to you. And we'll show that email address again as we move through today's session. So as it relates to COVID, we want to make sure that our explanations for why we're doing things differently, or to assure patients that we are going to be doing things differently in an even safer, more protective fashion when it comes to infection control, this is a wonderful time for doctors and their teams to build extremely patient-centric, benefit-oriented scripting about why coming back to dentistry is safe, why it's a good idea for patients to come back and have their dental care done in our practice, because we are going to be doing things in the new post-COVID way. So starting to define that and coming up with verbal skills. Also, if any of you want to shoot us an email and ask us an opinion on a script that you're thinking of developing, we love script building. I'd be happy to evaluate any concepts or ideas that you have and give you my feedback on them.
And one of the areas in the scripting in this manual is about treatment acceptance, how to get patients to accept treatment, whether it's in the hygiene room or in the doctor's room. And a wonderful thing to do during this period is to go on the phone or go on a FaceTime or Zoom and do role playing with your team in various different situations. If any of you would like to go over how to do this role playing, or review some of the scripts that are in the manual that we'll be sending out on your request, please give us a call. We'd be happy to discuss that with you. There are a lot of changes ahead. The normal is going to be a new normal when we return to our offices. And in going into this period, there is a lot of changes in our expectations, in our fears. What are going to be the requirements? There's going to be concern for fluctuations in the economy, in the market. How will it affect what patients will want to return for? How will we deal with the anxiety and depression among our teams and our patients? So what you see is, with all of these changes ahead and uncertainty, what it's going to create is a necessity to reset some of our goals. We hope that in your practices that you are very goal-oriented, and we believe strongly in setting daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and then ultimately yearly goals. In resetting your goals, be smarter. Be specific as you can with your goals, and being specific, it means giving something that is truly measurable. If something is worth being done, it's worth being measured. If it's worth being measured, it's worth being rewarded. And so in our practices that we work with goals, we work with setting up specific goals, and in the end, these goals serve as the benchmarks for some very, very meaningful incentive and bonus programs. Be meaningful. Why is it so important to reach these goals? Now, it's easy for us as business owners and for us to be speaking to our teams about dentistry as a business. But for our patient, even our teams resent some of the talk of business. Certainly our patients do. So in making it meaningful, and why are these goals important, is not to think of them as that we're measuring production, collection, and revenue, but rather think of it as a measure of the amount of quality care that we are being able to deliver to our patients. And if that comes across to our patients, that we are more concerned with raising the standard of care, raising the perceived value of that care, and working on the verbal skills that Kelly spoke about in making them really appreciate that the effort is being put in so that they derive a benefit, then it gives a much greater incentive to everyone to be striving for these goals. Make these goals achievable. They have to be realistic. Now, we may have had some goals set up for our practices for each month, and guaranteed your first month back, if you haven't planned for it properly, if you haven't been proactive, may be disappointment in terms of those goals. So you have to make sure that the goals each month are achievable so that it serves as an incentive for your team and that it doesn't demoralize them. Make the goals relevant. Set goals that are relevant to you and your life and your values. some of these goals may be to be proactive in being philanthropic. A lot of our patients are going to be out of work. A lot of patients will have been out of work. And so if there's something that we can do to give back to our communities, perhaps giving them a break, we're all asking for forbearance on some of our loan payments and some of our car leases, et cetera. But what about some forbearance for some of our patients as well? Be relevant. So incorporate that giving back portion and opening up your heart to setting your goals, that maybe they'll be a little bit more modest because it's important for you to give back. Make them time bound. It's important to set them. When you set up yearly goals, it's hard to relate to them early in the year. But if we set up good daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and we break these goals into tangible time units, it's easy for our team to measure it in their mind as to what they have to do to achieve that goal. Evaluate where you are with achieving your goals daily. Hopefully, you'll be having huddles every morning where you can track how you did the day before and then reviewing what your goals are for that day. It's so important to stay up on how you are doing in terms of performance, but more importantly, to have in the back of your mind, how are we doing in delivering quality care to our patients? And readjust. A different approach can help you progress and achieve. That goes along with changing some of your the ways we do things, certainly readjusting the amount of time we give patients to allow for the proper disinfection and to allow for proper spacing, social distancing, that this is going to have to be taken into account. And we're going to have to readjust our goals based on these things that we're seeing going on in our practices.
Absolutely. Such great points, Steve. This is also a wonderful opportunity to evaluate your policies. Dr. Katz and I have been hosting and been invited to be speakers on so many webinars since COVID hit and our practices got shut down, except for emergency work. So we've spoken on so many different topics. And I would say probably one of the top 3 questions we got in the early weeks were questions about human resources and questions about how doctors could and should handle furloughing their team, or did they need to pay them their paid time off? These questions were coming in, at a machine gun pace. And what became so apparent is how many practices did not have a current compliant practice policy manual. And the practices that did have that worked with a human resources company like HR for Health, they were so much better prepared and they had so much more clarity in navigating those channels of how they were going to handle their team during this, unprecedented period. None of us knew what to do because we've never been through this before. But having clearly defined policies are not only great for the doctor, but they're also wonderful for the team. Even after, when we get through this incredible challenge and we're in our new post-COVID normal, having clarity, having the ability for team members to know that there are no special deals. Everybody is being treated fairly. The way that the paid time off is handled is universal based on whatever criteria. There's a lot of safety. And when you talk about wanting to attract and retain the very best team, having a policy manual is an asset, not a detriment. The best employees out there want to work for a company, a practice, an organization that has that level of clarity and that level of fairness and has some perks and some benefits that they can acquire over time for loyalty and for good work. So we really encourage all of you to evaluate the policy that you have now, work with a company like HR for Health so that you can make sure that it's compliant. Every state, every local municipality, different cities, they all have slightly different labor laws and requirements. And in this world we live in now, compliance is king. So do it right and get with a professional company to make sure that you have it in writing. And we recommend HR for Health.
It's unfortunate in times like this that in the end, there tends to be a lot of litigation, whether it's warranted or not, it's going to be there. And we have quite a few clients who have HR for Health because they work with Henry Schein. And when they've had situations in the past of letting employees go or other issues that deal with HR, it's been a real insurance policy for them to have HR for Health in their back pocket and guiding them. We encourage that even if you have a manual in your office right now, contact HR for Health and see whether it number one is compliant and whether it protects you. And the other thing is for the team to know that these policy manuals protect them as well. Because as teams grow, it's easy to forget the little side promises that we've made each individual employee. Getting it in writing, getting it standardized is of utmost importance as we move forward. So one of the most common questions we get when we do our live programs is, how do I motivate my team? What can I do to get them to do what they're supposed to when they're supposed to do it? I just don't understand why they just can't take the initiative and do things on their own. And the response that we give to the doctors that pose that question for us is that they're asking the wrong question. The question that they should be asking is, what am I giving my team to be motivated about? Because motivation is an internal phenomenon. And what we need to do to give our teams the ability to become motivated is to increase the things that they find satisfying and decrease the things that they find dissatisfying. And so we can use this period where we're not in our offices to develop motivation within our team. It's a great time to conduct team performance reviews. The goodwill that we create with our team and by giving them acknowledgments and appreciation now will go a long way towards motivating them when they return. Constructive criticism, cushioned by compliments, will give the team time to make adjustments that will in the end make them more effective. And so one of the things that we do recommend during this period is having formalized team performance evaluations while we're on furlough period. And we have a great resource that we have developed for this. It's our team performance evaluation form. And when you do an evaluation with your team, have them fill out the form as well as yourself who's doing the review, whether it's the doctor, whether it's the office manager. We like this form because it's not a cut and dry rating each single performance. It's more of a discussion, talking about the things that the employee feels that they've done well since the last time they were evaluated, describing the things that they found challenging since the last time they were evaluated, talking about what are the things that they feel are obstacles in helping them achieve what they know should be expected of them. And this could be situations, it could be other team members. And then asking them, what is it that they would like to accomplish in the coming months and year? And this type of a conversation is very different than most evaluations have been in the past. And it tends to create a feeling that the team members are in on the management of the practice. And that is one of the great things, aside from appreciation, that seems to build a great amount of motivation in team members. This team performance evaluation is another resource that we do provide for our client practices. And that if any of you would like a copy of this, then we welcome you to email us at coaching@smilepotential.com, and we'd be happy to make this available to you as well.
We strongly believe that systems run your practice and people run your systems. The greatest companies in the world spend an infinite amount of time continually training on systems because they understand in order to get duplicatable, predictable results, you have to have defined systems. We talked a little bit about it earlier with creating job descriptions that ultimately become procedure manuals and training manuals. If you have something in your head and not written on paper, that's a thought or a memory, not a system. So we have to embrace a philosophy, and sometimes it's harder for team than it is for doctors, to embrace a philosophy where we understand that by putting everything in writing, that doesn't make us replaceable, it makes us irreplaceable because we are doing that for the good of the patients. We want the patients to get the same experience no matter who is working in the office. So some of the things that you can be working on now, and some of the things that we train on specifically, are a customized practice COVID bounce back program, where we're helping practices get up and running in this new normal and dealing with systems, time management, verbal skills, and other things that are frankly going to look a lot different than they looked 6 or 8 weeks ago. We also have standalone hygiene acceleration and administrative profitability programs that help train in those specific departments, which sometimes have very antiquated systems or no systems at all. And sometimes our hygiene programs are loss leaders, and they should not be. Every hygiene program in every practice in the country should be a profit center, not a loss leader. If yours is not, this is the time to figure out why that is and what we can do to change it. So again, systems run your practice, people run your systems. We could all sit home and binge our favorite Netflix shows for however many weeks it takes to get back to work, or we can use this time to retool and prime the pump and come back better and bigger than we ever were before. Your choice.
So as Kelly mentioned, when we get back to our offices, things may be very different. And we don't know exactly what's going to be required, but we know some of the things that we've seen online as possibilities, certainly with positive air pressure masks, N95s, face masks, head shields, hazmat type gowns, extra oral suction units. We don't know exactly what's going to be required, but we do have the confidence in knowing that Henry Schein is very on top of all this at the highest levels. And we are eagerly awaiting to hear from them on what sort of packages that they will be putting together for their client practices. And based on what they recommend, we think that that would be a very, very good starting ground for everyone in their practices to start there and get the recommendations of your Henry Schein reps.
This is a terrific time to go paperless. Another project that we talk about many times when we're out lecturing and coaching, and we hear doctors consistently say, we would love to go paperless, we just don't have the time, there's no way. Well, now we have this tremendous blessing of a lot of time. So this is an opportune time for everybody listening to get online to the Dentrix Resource Center. There are so many videos and webinars and things that you can watch from home, and members of your team can watch from home to learn how to go chartless in this new world that we're living in. If we look at the traditional way that practices with charts do things, and we think about what we now know about COVID and how COVID can be transmitted, think about the idea that pre-COVID, our administrators were not wearing any PPE, which will probably be different now. But think of the idea that we would take that paper chart and we would usually lay it on a counter in a room with a ton of aerosol. And then we would take that chart and hand it off to someone that was not wearing gloves or a mask and didn't have the ability to disinfect their area on a routine basis. So that's not going to be acceptable now because of what we know about COVID and how long it can live on cardboard and or paper surfaces. This is a great time to get rid of these charts, use it as an opportunity, get the training that you need to put the information in Dentrix. Your Dentrix software, your Easy Dental software, your Ascend software, for large practices, your enterprise software, it will never do you wrong. That information is there, it's correct, it's accurate. It's such a cleaner, more efficient way to practice. Now is your time to go paperless. Use the resources available with the time that you have. If you have questions or you want pointers about going chartless and Dentrix, that's something that we've coached dozens and dozens of practices at Smile Potential. So if you want to email us at coaching@smilepotential.com, I'd be happy to give you whatever tips I can, complimentary, to get you started on the process.
Just this morning, one of our clients in a phone conference asked me, where should they start in going paperless? And one of my instructions was that if we're anticipating being back in June, then start scanning the charts that are in the appointment book for June at this point in time, and then pick it up from there. There's plenty of good time. with the PPP money starting to come into some practices, we know a lot of you are disappointed. This is a good time to use that, fulfilling the requirements to make those loans forgiven, and have your team in the offices as soon as they are able to work actively on scanning the contents of your present paper charts. Can't emphasize the importance of embracing analytics. Do you know the numbers of your practice, and are you able to use those numbers in order to help you make the right decisions? You know, we've just gone through the early part of tax period, so a lot of doctors are familiar with their production and collection, and many are also familiar with new patient numbers, and they gauge the success that way. Many had already gone through the process of reviewing the numbers with their accountants, and so had some sort of a sense of their practices. But there are a lot of areas that are not in the basic numbers that require more closer scrutiny. And that means using your Dentrix to extract information that tells you about new patient numbers, and what is your success rate in converting new patients into ongoing care patients? What is your success rate in getting patients to accept treatment? What sort of attrition do you have? You know, we gauge our new patient numbers, but do we also keep track of the patients who we're losing because they've become inactive? And do we look at the percentage of hygiene that is perio versus preventive? Do we look at our reappointment rates? Because reappointment rate will have a huge impact on the attrition rate in most practices. And are we able to value the potential appointments in rescheduling patients for when they come back to our offices? So one of the things that we have learned over the last couple of years is that supplement what we have available to us in our practices. We think it's extremely a great time for all of the practices to embrace Henry Schein's offer to do the Henry Schein practice analysis. This is a great report that tells practices where their opportunities are, whether it's adjusting fees, or whether it's in utilization of codes, or whether it is procedures that they maybe haven't been doing as much as they could. Another supplement to what we're able to get out of Dentrix, and because Dentrix does have dental intelligence as a partner, is to utilize the dashboard that dental intelligence has, that gives you a in-the-moment reading of how a practice is doing. You know, there's a ticker tape at the top of the screen that tells you about your active patients and how many of them are active in hygiene, how many of them are pre-appointed, what your production is. If you go down to the bottom of the screen, you see that there is day-to-day graphing and over month to month and year to year about hygiene reappointment. And we know that hygiene reappointment, when it's at 70%, still leads us for the potential of losing half of our patients over the course of a year if we don't stay active on the phone in keeping them engaged. So that by monitoring hygiene reappointment in our offices, if we can raise that hygiene reappointment to 90% or above, we know that the attrition that shows up in this graph, which is new patient flow over time versus patients who are being lost due to attrition and moving and dying, is we can minimize the effect of the patient loss and know that our practices are growing. And also the ability to track, number one, diagnosis in both hygiene and restorative, and then in treatment acceptance is important. But really the heart of the matter right now is the offer that Dental Intelligence has made to make their service basically the first couple of months free before we get back to work, is their COVID preparedness dashboard, which enables them to prioritize patients in scheduling based on knowing who will be our most productive patients right off the bat, both restoratively and in hygiene. It's incredible how they're able to correlate information based on amounts that are in existing treatment plans, the degree of compensation from their third-party insurance companies and their level of compensation for procedures, whether patients have a track record of accepting treatment when it's presented, how they keep their appointments, if they have low receivables. When all of these factors are considered, you begin to develop a list that enables you to have your best day when you get back, your best week when you get back, your best month when you get back. And ultimately, it will enable offices to, at the end of this year, go to the point of saying that this year actually ended up being one of their best years ever. So we highly recommend contacting Dental Intelligence. You can certainly do it through us, and we can connect you. So please take advantage of that. Success is not due to the work we do. It's due to the relationships we make. And so while we also have spoken about the loyalty of our team, it's important to talk about the loyalty of our patients. The patients who we have in our records have developed this loyalty and trust because they've received great care and they value the relationships we have. We want to leverage that loyalty into creating a viable business strategy. And up till now, we have spoken a lot in our coaching practices about creating discount plans for those who've lost their insurance, who don't have insurance. But we're changing that now to think of these as patient loyalty programs. If we think back 12 years ago, the recession had very little effect on the number of visits ultimately in the dental offices, but it did have a very big effect on the amount of spending that patients had immediately after. Many patients had lost their jobs back then. Well, job loss right now is at an all-time high. And unfortunately, and maybe it's some of the way we've spoken about what we do, some of our patients think dentistry is expensive. But if we can now develop better scripting, better value add, benefit-oriented scripting, so patients begin to understand the true value towards health in what they receive in our office. We want them to realize that we are here to raise the standard of care, to give them a greater appreciation of the value of that care. And when they start to put greater value on it, they don't start to think of it as being as expensive. Uninsured patients are worried about cost and care, and not having the coverage makes them feel very uncomfortable. And they also feel uncomfortable about negotiating fees. So they tend to stay away from the offices. Loyalty programs budget patients to receive that care. When there are no insurances available, 1 in 3 adults do not have insurance. 2 out of 3 seniors don't have insurance. So it behooves us to want to develop programs that enable them to feel like they have some sort of coverage. 17% of adults without insurance visit the dentist every year. That means 83% of patients who don't have coverage don't go to the visit, don't go. 50% of adults who have insurance visit the dentist each year. That means even with coverage, 50% of them do not go. We want to let patients feel that they are covered. And when they know that coverage is coming from us, they develop greater loyalty. One of the lessons we've learned through this period is that our patients truly value health. Here in the New York area, everyone knows of someone who has the virus. Unfortunately, many of us know others who have succumbed to the virus. And so if there is ever a period of time where people have valued health, it's now. Uninsured patients wish they had coverage. And we have to realize that we are in a membership economy. How many of you have been glued to Netflix, each and every day, watching movies and favorite TV shows? How many of you have been online ordering from Amazon Prime as part of a membership plan? How many of you are looking forward to the day when you can go back to your Costco or BJ's and your big box stores, and where you have a membership plan that entitles you to a discount? So our patients are used to memberships, and these memberships create loyalty to Netflix, Amazon, Costco, and they do create loyalty to our office. It commits patients to hygiene visits because, in part, they have already been prepaid for. So we can use this to promote to our uninsured active patients. We can use it to promote to new patients. We can use it to promote to dormant patients who haven't been in a while. An area where we can use this tremendously is to go to our senior population. If you have an assisted living, if you have a senior community where it's 55 and above, know that many of these people do not have their dental insurance benefits anymore. And to be able to present them a loyalty program that entitles them to a discount in your office would be a great benefit. And up till now, we've been encouraging our practices to create these programs for local businesses. Many small businessmen do not have the ability to include dental coverage in what they offer their employees. When they have something like this, it makes it seem like they have given their employees something, and they in turn feel good about it, and their employees feel better about their employment. So if you'd like some help with putting together one of these patient loyalty programs, we have samples of it. There are also companies that create these programs for your office, and we'd love to have that conversation with you.
We also have this opportunity now to build a brand. If you have not really cemented yourself as an identifiable brand in your community, now is the time to do that. If you don't have a social media account that you feel reflects all of the wonderful things going on in your practice and what you're capable of, now is the time to create that. This is a great opportunity to highlight some of the good things that are happening. In many of our client practices, we have a hygienist who has now become a volunteer for a Meals on Wheels program. And she's going out and delivering, now more than ever, homebound people in our communities need these Meals on Wheels delivered to them because of COVID. So they are highlighting some of that on their practice social media with her permission, that's something that she's doing. So if you're doing wonderful charitable things and you're volunteering or you're donating or you're coming up with hand washing videos or how to use gloves and masks properly, these are wonderful 1 or 2 minute videos that you can make that are so helpful for society right now and will identify you as a practice that really cares and is part of the community and trying to help people. Sesame is an incredible community working with Henry Schein One to help you build your social media, to help you get a website and social media accounts that look the same and work in synchrony to help patients find you on the internet. The majority of patients today will find you somehow on the internet. And it's very important that what they see, your Google Places page, does that have your correct practice hours? Does it have your best contact information? Does it have a picture of your practice, the exterior of your building? Making sure that when people try to look you up on GPS, that it's easy to find you, that it takes you to the right address, that you have the time now to look at all of these things and make sure that your practice is being properly represented and have some fun with it. Decide when we come back to work, how much are we going to include our patients in our social media? Talking about loyalty and celebrating patient loyalty. If you've been in practice for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, look at when we get back to work, look at patients that have been with your practice for that milestone number of years and have a small token gift for them and ask them to take a picture and put it on your social media and celebrate the loyalty of the patients that have been with you maybe from the beginning. What a fun thing to do. I cannot say it enough. We have to be positive. We have to look at, there will be light at the end of this tunnel for all of us. And we need to embrace leadership and be the voice of reason, be the voice of calm, and the voice of optimism in our communities. Now is the time. And so for everybody listening today that's a Dentrix user or any other software, I'm going to take it on a Dentrix spin. There are so many things that we can be doing and we should be doing now in this time to utilize our software better. Clean up your active patients and their treatment plans. Go through housekeeping, and if you offered a patient 3 options and they picked one and completed one, the other 2 options of the treatment plans have to be rejected in the treatment planner module. Create more user-friendly treatment planning buttons, including multi-codes in the charting module, so that when we get back to work, everybody is able to do this more efficiently. Again, critically important if you were not chartless before, but you're going to go chartless now. the team's ability to treatment plan quickly and seamlessly and efficiently is really paramount when you're chartless. So this is the time to get these systems built. Clean up your insurance database. Make sure that we don't have a lot of duplicates. Make sure that we don't have incorrect insurance breakdowns in there. Get your eCentral eligibility set up and get trained on it. Set up your online new patient paperwork, also known as questionnaires, through eCentral. Get trained on it. Update your new patient forms with COVID questions. We all need to consider COVID screening questions now as patients are coming into our practice. For example, questions like, have you had a fever within 14 days? Have you had a persistent cough within 14 days? Do you have shortness of breath? When things open back up and we're allowed to travel again, one of the questions might be, have you traveled outside of the United States within 30 days? This is going to be a normal part of practice now. So this is the time to put these systems in place, get your team trained on these protocols now, use the software to be, the software now becomes the system, right? Systems run the practice, people run the systems. Evaluate your recall system, rework it if needed. Now's the time. Create your block scheduling, perfect day scheduling in your Dentrix. In my opinion, there is not another software program on the planet that does block scheduling as well as Dentrix does it. Learn how to use it. Here are some of the reports that you should be running routinely under any circumstance, but now's your time to get caught up on them and learn how to analyze them. Your accounts receivable. Look at that critically and consider writing off balances that you know are not collectible. Why carry those on your books and make yourself sick looking at that report if that money can't be collected? Insurance aging. Let's look at that. Let's discuss with whatever team member is responsible for it, why it looks the way it looks. Are we satisfied with it? Do we need to re-engineer those systems to get a better result? The answer is probably yes. Your pre-estimate aging. Why are you doing so many pre-estimates in the first place? And understand that only 1/3 of pre-estimates in the United States ever become claims. So if they're aging out, that means the patient never did the work. That was a fail. Unscheduled treatment plans. That goes back to number one. Cleaning up those old treatment plans, making sure that that report is accurate so that now, if we come back post-COVID, we might have a lot of days that we don't have so many people scheduled. If these reports are clean and pure, we have a tremendous opportunity to get on the phone or get emailing or get texting and offer patients an opportunity to have the care done now. Insurance utilization. If you're planning on dropping or planning on adding plans, you should know where your revenue is coming from what plans are most profitable to you. New patient list. Are you always tracking your referral sources? That's part of phone scripting. If you are going to email us at coaching@smilepotential.com, you will get our new patient phone call scripts. So that's a resource that we're offering everybody that's attending today. Those are some of the Dentrix projects that you could be doing. I love training on Dentrix. That's a big part of what we do in our coaching program because I've been a Dentrix user personally since a beta version. So I know it inside and out. I love it. I think it's the best. Same goes for Easy Dental, Ascend, etc. So if you need help with any of these projects, shoot me an email or call me at the number that you see on the screen, and I'd be happy to help in any way that I can. This is a great chance for you to take a screenshot if you want our cell phone numbers and our individual email addresses. Take a screenshot of this slide. Now is the time to take action. Use this gift of time that we have to turn a bad situation into a good situation. This is your time. We're all in this thing together, and we're going to come out better as a profession than we ever were before.
Don't wait till our offices reopen to start re-engaging your teams. This is an opportunity to get your teams together on a Zoom conference, FaceTime, and start to take the action to prepare your team for reopening. One of the things we've been offering is a customized practice COVID bounce back program. And that is the types of things that we'll be dealing in. That is the things you need to do for proper precautions and verbal skills. And so absolutely take advantage of that. With what we've been talking about today, do you feel lucky? I remember way back the Clint Eastwood movie Dirty Harry, where he looked down the barrel of a gun and he said to a perpetrator, so do you feel lucky? Well, what is luck? Luck is when being prepared meets opportunity. And we have gone over today a lot of things that you could be doing to prepare for being open. And when you combine that preparedness with opportunity, It's not that the opportunity is nowhere, but it's that the opportunity is now here. And so use this opportunity. We've taken a shot in the gut from COVID, but it's a great opportunity for those who are prepared to really excel when we get back. In 2009, many practices suffered, but there were some at the same time that excelled in spite of it. It's because they made the right choice and they focused on what was necessary to not succumb. It means looking at your vision. What is your vision for success in your practice? Now is the time to make the decision for yourself in your practice. Recall the things that made your practice successful leading up to the crisis. Think about the loyalty of your team members and the trust that you've developed over many years with your patients. These emotional ties will resurface as our lives again become more normal. If it was your degree of caring that contributed to your success, then dial it up now while you cannot be in your offices and call every one of your patients. Give back to your communities. You have a lot of patients who've been out of work. Open your hearts when your doors cannot be open. There's a history that should give everyone a sense of optimism that we will all get through this, especially because we're doing it together. If there's comfort in numbers, then let's use this opportunity to encourage one another. When others offer complaints, don't join in, but instead change the topic to how we can get through this by working hard now and staying focused on a positive income, as difficult as it may be. The choice of becoming bitter or better is yours, and yours alone. Make the right choice, and your office will be very successful moving forward.
I have a couple of questions, Steve. So the first one here is, what if a team member says they'd rather stay on unemployment rather than return to work when I've sent them an email letting them know that we're ready to come back on a specific date? So our advice to that is, if you're using a payroll company that has some HR guidance available to you, you can inquire there. If you're using an amazing company like HR for Health, they certainly would be the experts. Or you can call your state Labor Department Unemployment Division and find out. There was some rumors, I don't know if they're fact or not, that there were going to be a criteria that if employees were recalled to work and they chose not to come back, they would not be allowed to extend their unemployment benefits. But again, utilize the experts that you have available to you to get clarity on these questions so you can make good decisions. I have one more question. Question number 2, what are our requirements for PPE and air filtration when we return to work? And that is, I think, a question that is on everybody's mind. Our answer to that and recommendation is to reach out to your Schein rep for guidance. Schein is constantly researching and always in compliance and always at the forefront and the leading edge of what's required for us as a profession. So reach out to your Schein reps and find out from them what the requirements are and what type of PPE is going to be readily available for you and your teams at whatever date you're allowed to come back to work. And again, this is going to be really region specific. We're all going to be starting at a slightly different time, it looks like. So let's be as prepared as we can be.
Last question was from someone who wanted to know about what do we do to curtail the fear of our team and our patients so that they'll want to come back?
Great. I think that many of the things we talked about today, to be a leader, to look at the glass as half full, not half empty, and to say that this is an opportunity for all of us to work together in a new way, to be safer, to be more cautious. Frankly, a lot of practices that I've observed have had very, very sloppy infection control requirements and even OSHA requirements. This is a great time for the team to understand that OSHA always has been and always will be for their own safety. So if you have a dental assistant that refused to wear safety glasses for the entire 10 years that she worked for you because they were uncomfortable, but now she says she's afraid to come back to work because of COVID, well, that's pretty contradictory. So I think we all have to be honest with ourselves, and we all have to understand that it's an incredible responsibility to be a healthcare provider, but far more, it's an incredible privilege to be a healthcare provider. And we're either going to be in it to win it or we're not. I think this is going to be a turning point for a lot of people. But doctors that are listening today, be a great leader, be a voice of optimism, be someone that looks at this as a challenge that we can overcome together and come out better on the other side.
And lead by example, that if you are not cutting corners, if your team sees that you're doing all the things correctly and all the things that are recommended for their protection, it will certainly give them a lot more confidence. And if they feel confident, that will easily go over into giving your patients confidence. And with that last question, I want to just thank Henry Schein for giving Kelly and I the opportunity to partner with them in delivering this recovery message. We are going to bounce back from it. We're going to be better than ever before, especially with Henry Schein behind us.
Thank you all so much for your time. It's been terrific. And again, please take advantage of the resources that we offered. Email us at coaching@smillepotential.com.
Thank you, Stephen Kelly, for that great presentation and certainly that checklist of items that all practices can put into place. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please email us at webinars@henryschein.com, and please make sure you click below to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you again for taking time to watch this and review it and share it with your colleagues. Again, until we see each other, please stay safe and stay informed.